answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, certainly the president's made a decision here, and that is to try one last diplomatic effort to see if we can make a deal with the Iranians. And believe me, I mean, President Trump, we got to remind ourselves, he is the one president that has taken Iran on in a consequential way in 47 years. 7 other presidents had to deal with this regime, and he made up his mind that they were going to solve this problem. And why is that? So our audience understands once again, is because even after the 12-day war, Stuart, we recognized by intelligence, Mossad and the CIA, that Iran was recommitted to all of its goals again, despite its nuclear program being set back and despite the destruction of its military capability. They fully intended to rebuild their ballistic missile program, to recover their nuclear program, and they were funding support to the proxies right after the war and continuing it during a different network than what they were using. When they came to that conclusion, they are not going to change.
They are not going to change. Retired 4-star General Jack King. Iran is not changing its stripes. They're still a snake. They are not shedding any of their skin. They'll act like they're going to back off, but they're not. You know, at least with the rattlesnake, you hear the rattlers shaking, giving you clear warning. It will still threaten you. But something like a cobra, be very smooth and silent until it gets to you. Python, all of those could describe Iran. And they keep saying we're working on the deal. And supposedly the new leader of the Iranian regime is still so badly hurt and disfigured, he cannot be seen on any video. He cannot even speak, at least anywhere where they want to record him. And they're using couriers to try to communicate the U.S. peace proposals to Iran to get to him. And that takes time. You can't just pick up the phone and start having a conversation with a guy. You can't even get someone that really has the authority to make a decision to meet with the U.S. delegation. And Trump is tired of playing this game. I am too, and so is General Jack King. And yet we have in our midst those walking among us who say Iran's not a big threat, just not a big threat. I'm going to let you hear from a standing U.S. senator making that remark coming up shortly. And make note of this. Over Memorial Day, when you're supposed to be taking a moment, at least a moment, to recognize the sacrifices made for this country, the leftist protesters were out going against detention centers where detainees were being held because they've been rounded up by ICE. They're protesting anything and everything they can, and they are doing that on the very day you should be honoring the men, women who died to give you that right of free speech. They not only don't know history, they don't care about history. They only care about their progressive, Marxist, communist agenda. Mondami, by the way, Mondami is talking about we're going to get rid of the bad landlords in New York City. Well, I would agree with that if there's some bad landlords. But how are you going to? He's actually talking about we might take over some of their buildings, their apartment complex. He's going to seize private property owned by businessmen. They might be bad businessmen. They might be absolutely putting their tenants in horrible situations. But you're going to start seizing private-owned property? These guys have an agenda, and they will not stop until we stop them. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA. We're here every Monday through Friday for you from 6 to 8 p.m. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. And reminding you, if you miss any part of our programs, you can always get the podcast. After we finish the program, each goes up as a podcast. Video and audio available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. We're always going to be there for you. And with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave each hour with more information and knowledge than you have right now. That's a guarantee. In our next hour, Trump being called the most corrupt president in American history. Consider the source. And I'll tell you who the source is when we get into that in the next hour. We're also going to be joined by the mining CEO of Pebbles Mining Company, talking about what's being done in Alaska and how regs again are trying to thwart efforts to open up our vast mineral resources available. And later in this hour, Fred Fleitz, 30-plus years in Intel, serving with House Intel committees, also the CIA and other agencies, his latest view on Iran and where it stands right now. And plus the story behind the story. Oh, this will be fun. Stupid criminals. I don't mean just stupid. I mean dumb as a rock. And I've got one story I was personally involved in. And this would be really funny except for what the guy did. That'll be our story behind the story later in this hour. All right, I told you there is one U.S. senator who says, you know, we should just go ahead and go along with Iran. We should just trust these bozos would really accept anything they're told and sold by Iran. And this particular bozo, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, says, well, we're better off to have even a bad deal with Iran. Are you serious?
The bottom line is every day this war goes on, we get weaker, they get stronger. So even though this is not a good deal, I'll take it because we need to bring our troops home. We shouldn't lose a single additional American. We've spent so much money on this war. We got to get gas prices down. So that's my position. A bad deal is.
Yeah. Throw in the gas prices and you get a lot of applause. They are beginning to ease, and they will continue once we get the Strait of Hormuz open. That's not directly affecting us, the Strait of Hormuz. It's affecting the global economy, which in turn does reflect upon us. And not just the price of gasoline, jet fuel, diesel fuel. It's all connected. And yes, that means the price of various goods and products you want, especially food, are still up right now. But damn it, how many times do we have to drive it home? The main issue is Iran wants nuclear weapons. That's the first thing of every peace proposal we put in front of them. You will agree no more efforts to build nuclear weapons. And then two, you will not control the Strait of Hormuz. That's international waters. Always has been. And yet we see the Iranian leaders apparently reaching out to embrace unity with some of the nations that they have gone against in the past. They're reaching out and saying, we want Saudi Arabia to work with us. You've been bombing Saudi Arabia, Iran. Oh, you forgot about that? United Arab Emirates. Yep, same thing. And General Jack King, 4-star retired general, says, what we know that Iran has been doing is staggering.
The math was alarming. They were building ballistic missiles at a rate assisted by China that if they were able to use them against Israel and our allies, it would overwhelm our ability to defend effectively against that. That was the sense of urgency that was driving it, and people forget why we're actually in this. And it truly is stability in the region, U.S. vital national interests here for sure, protection of Israel and our allies in doing so. what we were on the cusp of doing, returning to military operations. The president understands what that is, what that would achieve, and he's giving the Iranians another chance here to see if we can get to the same place without having to use that military force. So where are we in that? They're trying to stitch together, Stuart, a memorandum of understanding, a document that would be a framework document. It wouldn't be a deal, but it begins to tell you how much agreement there is just to get that document put together.
And that was General King on Fox's Larry Kudlow. Then you've got New Jersey Senator Cory Booker, who's also saying there's so many rumblings on the way right now that we need to get out of the Iran war, and we're going to see more of it ramp up.
Many of us have private conversations with folks who will express their disdain, their outrage in private, but do nothing in public. And so what I'm hoping is going to happen is what we saw with Senator Cassidy right before we left. I've been leading with a group of Democrats to push every week for basically for saying no to this Iran war on the floor of the Senate, forcing them to go on the record. And we've been gaining more and more people. And finally, we actually won one of those votes, which is going to force an up or down vote on the war on the Senate floor when we return. And so I'm really hoping that the next liberated person to speak their mind, to tell the truth of what they think about Donald Trump and his hurting of the American people, especially with this war, is going to be John Cornyn.
Oh, John Cornyn, right, who just got defeated soundly by the Trump-endorsed Paxton, and Cornyn will not be returning to the Senate. But he thinks while Cornyn is in there until he is replaced, he will speak out with us. He will join the left side. I wouldn't doubt it if he does, but he'll be showing the true colors he has been kind of trying to hide for decades. Secretary of State Rubio says Iran is on the edge of either peace or more war.
Iran likes to sponsor proxy groups of terrorists, and these terrorists don't care what they blow up. They blow up anything and everyone. Okay, this is who we're dealing with. Okay, this is an Iran that not long ago, through their Hezbollah proxies, blew up a Jewish center in Argentina and killed a bunch of people. This is an Iran that innovated the use of roadside bombs that killed and maimed a bunch of people, including American servicemen, but a bunch of other people. This is an Iran that has organized the assassinations and the attempted assassinations of people all over the world, including, civilians and dissidents and people they don't agree with. There is no nation on earth that sponsors more terrorism than Iran.
And yet there's a memo from the Iranian media, for what it's worth, saying the U.S. will end the blockade and Iran will reopen the strait. Yeah, so they say. Secretary Rubio and others have said that Cuba, just 90 miles from our border of Florida, has hundreds of drones that could hit deep inside our nation. Well, the Cuban foreign minister claims Rubio, Trump, and all the others are lying.
We will have to ask the Secretary of State if he has any evidence. I have heard him lying on and on regarding this issue. Cuba is, of course, a sovereign state with the right to defend itself, but the U.S. is an extraordinary military power. I can affirm you categorically that Cuba is not, nor does it want to be a threat to the U.S. It is not, nor does it want to be an enemy.
Mr. Minister, you say the Secretary of State is lying, sir, but do you deny specifically that the Cuban regime has a stockpile of Russian and Chinese-made military drones or plans to potentially launch proactive attacks on the U.S.?
It is a sheer slander. I repeat, the Secretary of State is deliberately lying when affirming that Cuba is a threat to the U.S. or that Cuba has military plans against the U.S. I regret the Secretary of State to instigate on and on military action and a change of regime action against our country. He is deliberately lying in order to deceive the U.S. people, in order to justify a policy that has no moral or legal grounds.
Well, I guess Cuba is just a peace-loving nation, right? Do you know how they treat their citizens in Cuba? How many have been rounded up and executed by the Castro regime? And how many will continue to face that if they speak out? Well, some are beginning to do that. I want you to listen to a reporter based out of Florida who was in Cuba. I think he's a Cuban national to begin with himself, reporting on exactly how the people in the street are now beginning to talk and speak and make them points that they think need to be spread around.
So it's interesting what they're saying, because after living and working in Cuba, it's surprising to see this level of honesty on the streets. One man tells us he was some sort of intervention from the U.S. Others hoping whatever happens that no one gets hurt. In Havana, life continues amid rising tensions with one of the world's superpowers just 90 miles north. Josvani Almaguer sells baked goods on the streets. Logic tells you, he says, there has to be regime change in Cuba. He also tells us if Trump is going to take action, do it now, because things aren't getting better. 67 years in power, and it's the same, talking about the Cuban government. Adding power is addictive, and it's hard to give it up.
You'd never take a military option off the table.
Here in Miami, Senator Rick Scott, a Republican, weighs in on Cuba. He was asked if there should be U.S. military intervention on the communist island.
Look, this president doesn't want to use the military. He wants peace.
By all accounts, the military option is on the table. The U.S. is using a multi-strategy effort to pressure the Cuban government to make drastic changes to its system. Most recently, new U.S. sanctions against certain high-ranking government officials.
And, of course, the pressure to stop any more oil going into Cuba. More than 9 million Cubans have frequent power outages lasting up to 18 hours a day. Secretary Rubio said, we'll send $100 million in humanitarian aid, but we're going to make sure it goes through Catholic charities, groups that we know are giving it to the people, not to the regime. Coming up, Fred Fleitz, an expert on Iran, and his latest view on where we stand in dealing with a nation that speaks with a forked tongue. And then our story behind the story today. Stupid criminals. Oh, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them. But I've got one personal story I want to share with you. You don't want to miss it. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest is an expert in foreign affairs, especially Iran. Decades with the CIA, House Intel Committees, and other. Now he's vice chair of the America First Policy Institute. Fred Fleitz. Fred, welcome aboard, sir.
Hey, Larry, good to be here.
Well, we have seen a flurry of activity over the weekend, and Memorial Day weekend in particular, regarding what the president is or is not going to do. They were going to meet with his cabinet at Camp David, then all of a sudden decided to cancel that and go back to D.C., get involved with some of the latest with Iran. What do you make from watching all of this happen with your background knowledge?
Well, I've been watching the cabinet meeting. It's actually ongoing right now, and I think the president is trying to put forward the message that the media won't say, that Iran is defeated, conclusively defeated. Their economy is in great shape, that we have promoted American leadership around the world. I don't know about you, but my 401k has soared despite this war. I don't think CNN is even talking about that. And, I'm not that great a stock picker, Larry, so I think there's something else going on here. Well, Trump says that his policies make husbands look brilliant to their wives when it comes to their 401k plans, like they're brilliant investors. But look, Trump is also trying to deal with an Iranian government that is just completely untrustworthy. They say they want a deal, and then we had an outbreak of hostilities again over the weekend because Iranian boats were mining the Strait of Hormuz, and we retaliated. And then the Iranians said that they're going to retaliate against us around the world because we retaliated to their action.
And that's a key point. This is in an international waterway, which suddenly Iran wants to claim it is ours and ours to control, and it belongs to us. And so we can impose tolls and we can block anything going through. The international waterway has never been disputed. It is still really not being disputed. It's just Iran shouting from the rooftop.
That's right. And they're involved in negotiations with us, and then they're doing this act of war by placing mines in the area. And it just, we also have these instances where it looks like the government has agreed to something, and then we find out that they're not agreeing to it, or there's all kinds of conditions. I heard they want a $12 billion sanctions relief payment before they'll sign anything. But they're not in a position to bargain. Their military has been destroyed. Their economy's in such bad shape, but their propaganda operation's going strong.
And Secretary of State Rubio says one of our issues is we cannot deal directly with the regime leader. We have to use a courier to get to him because he doesn't want to be targeted for assassination by the U.S. or anyone else. And apparently he's still disfigured, not capable of speaking, walking. I don't know what his condition is, but we still never know if we're talking to anyone who has any authority to sign off on anything.
I'm concerned. We hear that the Supreme Leader, who has not been seen since he was named to succeed his father, is in control, and his people have authority to make deals on his behalf. But I want to see proof of life that this Supreme Leader is actually there
and in control. I mean, this would be like showing us a Biden saying that he was in control. Sorry, I went off on that track for a moment.
You're right. You're right. Who's really calling the shots?
Yeah, perfect. I'm glad you agree. This is a Muslim holiday, of course. And what we have right now is several senior Iranian officials encouraging other Muslim countries to embrace unity against us. And that means some of the countries they've been bombing, such as Saudi Arabia and Iran, Oman, and everywhere else that they want to knock any U.S. forces out. And now they're turning around and saying, join us in fighting against the Americans.
Well, that's not going to happen. What I think may happen is what Trump is pushing. He wants a new alliance of Arab states with Israel under the Abraham Accords against Iran. And I think there's a good chance that's going to happen because these countries realize that Iran really is a determined enemy that had pre-positioned thousands of missiles to attack them. Iran was always ready to go to war with its neighbors, and I think these states have to act accordingly.
To that extent, I mean, the bombing campaign we carried out previously, along with Israel, we know we did not get everything. We know that they do still have enriched uranium. What grade is questionable? Can they actually access it? Can they continue? And we also know they have these missile batteries hidden all over. There is no way we can actually put an end to all of it, is there?
Look, I think the president achieved his objectives in making sure that Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. I think their nuclear program has been delayed at least 10 years. This buried enriched uranium, which is near weapons grade, we've talked about this before. It's in a gaseous form. It needs substantial processing to make it into nuclear bomb fuel. All those facilities have been destroyed. The experts needed to make nuclear weapons. They're dead too. Now, I don't want them to have this enriched uranium, but I'm not worried they're going to make a bomb out of it anytime soon.
Now, there was a memo issued by the Iranian media today saying the U.S. will end the blockade and Iran will reopen the strait. That is their claim as Trump is holding this latest cabinet meeting.
Yeah, I read that memo, and it is full of distortions and alleged offers by the U.S. that the U.S. didn't make. This is what Iran does. It lies. It puts out outrageous stories that the media reports as if they're gospel truth. And then the Trump administration has to say, what is this? We didn't agree on any of these things.
And I see again, and since you're talking about the other media, CNN pointing out the Iran war spending is draining our U.S. military budget. Now, I know it's taking money, but it's a bigger issue than the price of gasoline at the pump.
Yeah, I mean, well, Trump had this great line in social media yesterday. He said, if the Iranian military agreed to a conclusive surrender, the mainstream media would call this an incredible win for Iran.
Yeah. They're going to twist.
He said it's hopeless. It's hopeless.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can't. And those folks that are locked into that, and I tell folks on my program, you make up your own mind. I'll tell you what my view is, but I'm not telling you have to think like me. But what they do is they just continue to push this issue all the time. You had one drawing a blank on her name, who was the Biden press secretary in the beginning, Jen Psaki, had Senator Cory Booker on, and he's saying, you know, we are having a conversation to put an end to this war, and I think now we're going to see more senators coming together, and those who have now are no longer believing in anything Trump is doing. Specifically, he was referring to Senator Cornyn, who does remain in office until the change of the year.
That's true. And look, there are Republican senators who, either they disagree with the war, but really they're worried about the War Powers Act. That's what members of Congress do. They like to protect their prerogatives. They all think they're Secretary of State, or they all think they should be president. And the fact is, the War Powers Act may be on the books, and it may technically require presidents to check in and get congressional authority before taking military action. But no president since it was passed, since 1973, has bothered to comply with it.
Yeah, and that was passed during the Vietnam issue. Now, dealing with that, it's a 60-day time limit that the president has to do that. But if you cease shooting, which we did days before the 60-day deadline, does that reset the clock? I have not heard a clarification on that.
That is what the administration is claiming. They're actually claiming that hostilities have ended. So if they resume again, it's a different conflict. Now, there are attorneys who, of course, disagree with that. But the thing is, this law has never been challenged in court. And frankly, neither presidents or members of Congress want to challenge it because they don't know what the Supreme Court would do.
Now, I understand there's a breakaway nation, Somaliland, that is going to be very vital, possibly to help us, and they are turning against Iran.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that, Larry. I have heard that they are siding with Israel and they're siding with the United States, but I think you got me on that one. I got to research that more.
Well, I didn't mean to throw it out like that. It's coming up as news to me too, to help the audience understand. According to this report from Fox News, and I can always give you the source, they're saying that Iran is deeply threatened by this small breakaway state, Somaliland, because of the potential for U.S., Israeli, and Western powers to use its deep water port and airbase. Aside from whatever is or isn't happening, use of that port and airbase would be substantial.
I think it probably would be. We do have other bases in Djibouti and in the UAE and Qatar, but I mean, the advantage may be that it's further away from Iran and harder for Iran to strike.
And not just Iran, but their terrorists, the Houthis in particular, right?
Well, the Houthis could fire missiles at it, I suppose, but the Houthis are sort of staying out of this conflict with this giant American armada in the Indian Ocean. I don't think they want to mess with us.
All right, Fred Fleitz, as always, I want to thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
You bet. Fred Fleitz, Vice Chair of the America First Policy Institute. Yeah, there are a lot of stories circulating out there, and many of them are trying to push Americans into believing Trump is wrong on everything. You know that. That's going to be their echo over and over again. And the legacy media more than glad to repeat it. The story behind the story, still to come.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Traveling in a fighter combi on a hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under?
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
Over the decades, I have covered and reported on countless dumb criminals. And you have either heard or watched those stories as well, read about them or others. If you're going to be a criminal, I think you need to start with being a smart criminal. Now, if you're looking at Ocean's 11 group, that's a pretty smart group, right? But some of them are just dumb. I don't know how many times I've covered stories of bank robbers who go in and fill out a withdrawal from their account. And they put down their name and their address and take it up to the teller, but on the back side of it, they flipped it over and now written, I'm robbing the bank, give me all the money you got in the cash drawer. The teller complies. The robber runs out with the money. They look at the note again, and on the other side, they find he put every piece of information they needed to go find the guy. They've done that numerous times. Or in some cases, they were acting like they were going to do a withdrawal or deposit at a countertop, filling out the same exact information, and then thinking when the timing is perfect, they'll go up and present just a note demanding money. All they have to do is look at the videotape, see what he was doing before that time. I will point this out. Ladies, let's point this out and make it a very clear point. Every one of these cases I've covered like this were men. They were men. Not smart enough to figure out, don't write down your name and your address when you're trying to rob a bank. And then there are those who get caught and stuck in something when they're trying to escape or trying to break in. Again, I've covered dozens of stories of, men that are going to get inside a home by going down through the chimney like Santa Claus. And then they get stuck. And they got to be crying out for help for somebody to come get them. The fire department finally arrives, pulls them out. Police immediately put them in cuffs. And there have been more than one occasion where the criminal went down into the chimney, got stuck. No one was home. That's why they were going to break in anyway. No one heard the cries. And days or weeks later, there's an odor in the home. They can't determine what it is, other than it appears to be coming from the fireplace. And that's where they find the body of the guy who could not either get in or get back out. And then you get guys right out of prison. You think that they would realize, man, I don't want to go back there again. But some of them would do some of the most stupid things to make sure that they would get back in. Didn't intend to, but they did. One comes, they say, right out of an action movie, basically. A 23-year-old fresh out of prison, trying to get home and thumbing a ride. Well, a truck driver stopped to pick him up. He was carrying 10 brand new Chevrolet Corvettes worth more than $1.2 million. When they made a stop near Tucson, the driver got out and the guy locked the doors behind him and then started driving away. How fast do you think you can go with a trailer load of Corvettes? Not very fast. Police quickly caught up to him, but then he's a hazard on the highway to anyone and everyone. Finally, they got him to pull over, and he was arrested. No damage to the Corvettes, and the driver finished his journey. And there's a story of another guy in Vancouver trying to escape police. He thought, there's an overhead cable above a restaurant. I can use that cable and try to crawl across the cable. Well, he couldn't hold on very well. He was slipping. Tried to put his feet on another cable and then fell right into a fire truck. And, of course, got taken into custody. Every one of these is a case of a dumb man. A dumb man. So, women, if you are blonde and you're tired of the blonde jokes, say, well, I never did what that guy did. And I'm not saying blondes are dumb. I'm just saying here's your response for some of them. And again in Florida. They happen a lot in Florida and Texas and elsewhere as well. A Florida man wanted for multiple felonies. They were searching the neighborhood, could not find him. They were looking everywhere, and someone said, hey, we haven't checked that laundromat. So they went in, looked around, no, couldn't see him. And then somebody realized, what's inside that tumble dryer? There was the guy they were looking for. I should say tightly squeezed in, certainly not neatly folded. He had served 7 years for various crimes. And when he was arrested, one of the cops said, well, I think he's free of static cling, I think, something of that nature. You get a pet shop that got broken into in Ohio. And the guy decided to smash the kennels, set loose the dogs, the birds, ferrets, rabbits, and gerbils. Police arrived, finding the animals roaming inside, started looking for the guy, and about an hour later, they found their suspect. You can't make this up. He had several gerbils stashed in his pants. And then you get a guy that gets stopped in Portland. Routine traffic stop. But he's driving a stolen car. And they take a look. He's got cash, he's got a revolver, and he's got a bag boldly labeled, definitely not a bag full of drugs, which, of course, it was. Oh, there's so many out there. I could never go through the entire list of either stories I have covered or reported on, maybe not directly involved. And there was one guy that got arrested for DUI because he ran into a police car. And again claimed I was not drunk, but he had his finger stuck in a White Claw can. And when he pushed the flip top in, it got stuck and he couldn't get it free. So he was driving erratically, trying to get the can off his finger. That's how they stopped him. And yeah, hard seltzer can still constitute DUI. But then there was a story I was involved in Texas. This is a story that I personally covered, and it would really be funny. And I have to admit, I did laugh about it when I first broke the story, and then later when the guy went to trial and in court. But the problem is the laughter had to go away because of the crime he actually committed. So, yes, there is more to the story behind this story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
So in Amarillo, Texas, police are called to the home where there's been a double murder and a man severely wounded in the face. And the best he could, he told officers that a guy broke in and killed the two women and then shot him with a shotgun, killed the women with a rifle. This was a guy who had made friends with these elderly women. And he was around to help mow the lawn, do some chores for them, and they appreciated him. He realized, they got some money. And he talked them into signing some papers which basically made him beneficiary of everything they had, including what they had in the banks. But, of course, payable only on death. When police arrived, they found the two women dead in the living room. They had been shot repeatedly in the chest. And the guy who had called 911, he was bleeding profusely from the face, and it was hard to determine exactly what had happened to him, although he said, the man came after me also. But I fought him off and got him out of here. On closer inspection, because police are not going to take someone's word, they're going to look into the case. But there was no rifle to be found in the house, so that kind of added to the guy's story and the fact that he was mangled in the face severely. They couldn't find a shotgun. They went back a day or two later, and started recanvassing the area, and they looked. Wedged between the couch and a wall was the rifle. Ballistics proved it was the rifle that fired the fatal shots at the women. But it was neatly wedged in. It was not easily discovered. So the question then was, when this guy made this story up, and now he's been mangled in the face, what happened? Where's the shotgun? Shotgun broken apart, found a few days later in a neighbor's trash can. Here's what the guy did. He shot the two women after getting them to sign over everything they had to him in case of their death. And then he killed them. And then to make it clear that he was also a victim, this idiot, in addition to being a killer, took a 20-gauge shotgun and was going to hold it close to his face and pull the trigger. And there was a blast in the ceiling, and blood and parts of his face, because as he pulled the trigger, he either flinched or jerked in some fashion. He blew off basically all of his nose and part of a forehead. Still capable of calling police and capable of getting the shotgun, tearing it apart before he called police, going down the street and dropping it into another trash can. And once they started looking at that, they found blood trails that they hadn't expected to find. So then the guy shows up in court. He's got his court date. The trial is underway. And again, it would be funny for what he did to himself, except that he killed two women in the process. But this idiot thought I need to wound myself to make it appear that I was also targeted by two intruders. So he takes a shotgun, holds it away from his body, but close enough that maybe it will strike him a little bit, and pulls the trigger. With a rifle, if you're a gun enthusiast or you have any knowledge of guns, you know there's one shell, one bullet is fired. With a shotgun, you've got numerous pellets fired at once. And when he jerked just enough that several of the pellets ripped off his nose and part of his forehead. So he shows up in court after he's been medically treated months later. But the guy was so disfigured. And that's the way he went to jail. So I don't know how he told the story once he was in prison. I don't think he probably would admit that after I killed the two women, I then shot myself, tearing off my face, basically. This is the stupidity of some of the criminals that are out there. And yet there are others that are very smart. In fact, they're so smart, if they would apply everything they do to being a criminal to an honest job, they might be, and would be probably, very successful. But they choose to take what is yours, and unfortunately at the cost of a life in some cases. We'll have another story behind the story tomorrow. I've got 2 or 3 on my page here. I'm not sure which we're going to go with, but you'll be interested. The story behind the story tomorrow. Coming up in our next hour, my guest is a mining company executive, and he says Trump's DOJ is supporting Obama-Biden EPA regs, which are hurting. That story, and remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law, O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Through our new citywide campaign, Fix the City, we will focus on the worst landlords in New York City. When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards. Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits, or even the tenants themselves.
Oh, they are all excited about this possibility. But do you understand what New York City Mayor Mondami is proposing? Aside from making everybody happy, he's talking about we, the New York City mayoral office, and using our power, which they don't have to do, will seize private property. That's what it comes down to. Are there bad landlords in New York City? I had no doubt there are. And yeah, charges should be filed against them for every violation that endangers or threatens their residents. And some of these people would like to live somewhere else, but they can't afford it. And they're having to live with the conditions they've got because the landlord is not going to do anything to keep the rats out of the property and not doing anything about giving them heat during the winter. Maybe no water. I'm all for that. I'm all for going after them and using the laws and the statutes you have to basically make sure that things are changed and corrected. And there have been some cases where it's gone to as far as to condemn a building. That doesn't help the residents, you do understand. If you condemn it, then everybody has to get out, and they may not have another place to go. And you add to the homeless. Of course, we have no problem with providing housing for illegals. But Mondami says, if necessary, we will take ownership of their buildings from these bad landlords and then give them to stewards that would include community land trusts that we will set up. Nonprofits, oh yeah, nonprofit. The Democrats know how to make nonprofit very profitable on a regular basis. They said we might even turn the building over to the tenants themselves, as if they would have any knowledge of what it takes to run a large complex housing of any type. It's all pie in the sky. But it resonates with a crowd that thinks, oh, this is going to make things better. Just like letting 9, 12, 20 million illegals into our country has made us better. Such a sad case coming out the other day over the weekend. of a man who's an illegal charged with killing 4 teenagers. He's driving on the highway the wrong way. Failed sobriety test. Police say he was clearly drunk, got on at the wrong part, assuming he can read English, and started driving without any care in the world until suddenly he collides head-on with a car filled with 4 kids, ages 17, 18 at the tops. All 4 of them died. He survived. And again, we have families grieving because this guy should not have been in the country. Thank you, Joe Biden. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, reminding you we're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Now, I appreciate you joining us and letting others know they don't want to miss the program. And we're streaming while we're on the air right now, video. You can watch the program right this moment. You can go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Larry Connors USA Rumble. And everything goes up as a podcast later at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. You can subscribe at LarryConnorsUSA.com, and we will deliver each program into your mailbox on a daily basis, so you don't have to search for it. It'll be given to you. We need minimum information just so we can email it to you, and we do not sell any of your information to anyone. I do want to take a moment to remind you, we started talking about this early this month, and look where we are, May 27. Well, it is next Tuesday, the event we've been telling you about in advance. Tuesday, June 2nd, 7 p.m., Lindenwood University. The Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise at Lindenwood University will hold a debate featuring the 3 top polling candidates in the St. Charles County executive race. All 3 will be there. News Talk STL's Jamie Allman will be a moderator. Panelists will include Mike Ferguson of News Talk STL Morning Show, and also Susie Moore, News Talk STL and managing editor of the Red State, and Dan Fox, managing editor of Mid Rivers News Magazine. You do not need a ticket. Admission is free, and you can go there and watch in person. We will be carrying it live next Tuesday, and that will start at 7 o'clock. So next Tuesday, Larry Connors USA will air only 1 hour, and then we will switch you to the debate at Lindenwood University. So you can hear it on the radio, and if you can be there in person, great. If not, you can certainly listen to it right here, following our first hour only of News Talk STL. Later in this hour, you're going to hear from a mining CEO, and he says right now we're having a problem, and we're having to challenge because the DOJ in the Trump administration, mind you, is defending Obama and Biden EPA regs, which are wrecking the mining industry and constraining us when we need minerals that we can mine here, in particular copper. Why is that happening? Why is the Trump DOJ enforcing Biden-Obama EPA regs? He'll give us his analysis coming up later in this hour. Now, big race everyone was watching over the weekend is what is going to happen to John Cornyn. Well, John Cornyn got blown away. We all know that. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But there was another race that had some interest in Texas, and that would be Tallarico, and we'll get into that as well. Tallarico was running against Jasmine, beats her, but everybody says he's just like Jasmine. You just switch genders and colors if you want to look at it like that. You still have an ultra-left progressive. This is in Texas, a Texas district. All right, let's deal first again with Senator Cornyn. Trump had stepped forward and said, I'm going to endorse Paxton in this race to be a U.S. senator. And NBC News, their chief data analyst, Steve Kornacki, could not even attempt to withhold his enthusiasm and his excitement and even shock over what happened.
Holy cow, we are off and running. Denton County, this is a big one, fast growing, just north of Dallas and Fort Worth here. You see 62% of the vote. What does that mean? This is the early vote that was cast here. Holy cow, that is a good number if you're Ken Paxton. A 25-point advantage for Paxton in Denton here. I'll show you the other county because we want to give you all the results, but I'm going to go right back to Denton because it's much more significant. This is massively significant.
Massively significant. A major win. That again showing the Trump endorsement carries a lot of weight. Now, of course, this was a primary. They still got to go through the general election. But Senator John Cornyn had been in that position for a couple decades at least. And he's ousted. And you know why? Because he is one of the Republican senators who voted to impeach President Trump the first time. Of course, he'll do the best he can to cause mayhem and difficulties before he walks out the door when he is actually replaced next year. Now, the issue with the other race we're talking about, this is James Del Tallarico. He's served since 2018 as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives in the Round Rock, Texas area where he was born, and he was running in a primary against Jasmine Crockett. So, one reporter was asking him, when you get right down to it, you missed 800 votes when you're supposed to be working in the state legislature, so a lot of the folks think you don't deserve to be promoted because you were missing votes you should have been attending.
I want to ask you about your record as a state legislator because they have reviewed your legislative history and you've missed over 800 votes during your time in the state house. Why did you miss the votes, and why should voters allow you to represent their interests statewide when some are saying you did not represent your district?
And this is a Republican talking point because I broke quorum twice with my Democratic colleagues to protest this redistricting power grab, to protest their voter suppression. And so I wasn't on the floor to take these votes because I was trying to stop them from passing these voter suppression efforts. And so they try to then take a look at all the votes that I missed when in reality I was doing my job.
Oh, yeah. Well, he says those are Republican talking points, but it's factual. You missed 800 votes. You're just making up an excuse as to why you did, saying, oh, I was doing my job. Now, again, Tallarico beat out Jasmine Crockett in their race for the Senate. But a former Texas Congressman, Allred, was endorsed by Crockett and won a Tuesday runoff for a Dallas area House seat, besting a candidate supported by Tallarico. So Jasmine saying, okay, you got me, but I got you back. The bottom line, even MSN Now has to admit Tallarico is just like Jasmine.
But look, I think, Joe, the key thing here is that James Tallarico was cast, and increasingly still is cast. I would say increasingly, but still is cast as a moderate. There is nothing. He's not a moderate. He and Jasmine Crockett had basically the same positions on almost every issue. He's a populist. He's a progressive. He's pretty far to the left on a lot of issues.
He's a leftist, just like she is. They didn't make any change for the better. And there's another issue, and even CNN made a point to raise this issue. Even if you were a Democrat, but you're a Christian, and yes, they do exist. It's not just Republicans who are Christians or even Jewish. There are Democrats, and they choose the candidate they think that will do better for them. But even CNN has to admit Tallarico might have a problem even with getting those who would vote for him because of his attitude toward Christianity.
This is the race they're going to run against him. It's going to be total culture war race. They're going to use that sort of blunt a lane he thinks he has carved out around his Christian faith and his interpretation of Christianity. I think it's going to be effective. I guess one of his statements was something like, "It's not clear if Jesus or God was a man or a woman, or he contains both masculinity and femininity." That's going to be a problem in Texas, and it's going to be a problem for a lot of Christian voters, whether you're Latino, black, or white. They don't agree with that interpretation of the faith and of Christianity. And so I think, he's a vulnerable candidate in Texas.
That's what he claims. But he's made remarks like, God is binary. No Christian's going to get into deciding God is a particular gender or binary or whatever else. God is God. So, yeah, he's going to lose a lot of that. But you know who he's courting now? He's going right after the Cornyn voters that were supporting Cornyn to stay in against Paxton. Well, as he says, you have a place in our campaign. There might well be some of the Cornyn voters that think, okay, Tallarico would be better than having Paxton. We'll have to see how that plays out. I've not seen any surveys on it right now to show one way or the other. Of course, we're just coming off the Memorial Day weekend. And over this very weekend, we had numerous protests that were just outlandish. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mullen.
Well, it just shows where these, extreme radical Democrats' priorities are when they choose Memorial Day, of all the days, to go out and protest the fact that we took criminals off the streets. Their priorities lie more with protecting these criminals, which are the worst of the worst, than it is actually, I would say celebrating the sacrifice that men and women across this nation have paid for the freedoms that they have to go out there and practice their First Amendment rights. But why Memorial Day? Why would they choose Memorial Day? And that was my complaint, because I was talking to them all day yesterday because, Andy Kim, Senator Andy Kim called me and said he wanted access to the facility because there were claims that there was hunger strikes, but there was not hunger strikes going on. I said, Andy, give me a little bit. Let me get somebody in there for you. And we ended up allowing him to have access to it. We said, you can't go in there with your staff and film and cause a big show. And then you had the Governor Sherrill jumped in. Then you had the other representatives and then Senator Cory Booker that was posting. And it's like it was all for show. And at the same time, they're trying to tell me they were trying to de-escalate the situation when you had Antifa flags flying out there. And at the same time,
Antifa flags on the very day that we're supposed to be honoring those who've given the ultimate sacrifice for this nation, for their right to be in the streets and protesting peacefully and making their voices heard peacefully. And yet they chose that day. They might as well have gone to each grave and spit on it or worse, because I think that's what they did. Coming up, the Trump DOJ is helping Biden EPA regs. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest is the CEO of Pebble Mining Company, John Shively. John, glad to have you with us, sir.
Oh, nice to be here, Larry. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I wanted to get into what I see is happening and get your view on it, and I know you've been fighting against it. Trump just returned from meeting Premier Xi in Beijing, trying to push against China holding a grip on all of our critical minerals. But the Department of Justice under the Trump administration right now is in court defending the Obama-Biden EPA veto that's blocking the largest copper deposit in our nation.
Yes. It was somewhat of a surprise to us, although in some ways dealing with this through the courts might be the best thing for us. We get a clean decision. So we'll see what happens. We have our final oral arguments end of June. Then we'll get a judge's decision. If we win, which we think we will because we believe EPA has way overreached their authority, then we will be able to go to the Trump administration, ask them not to appeal, and get back into permitting to see if we can get this mine going.
Well, that's one point that still kind of troubles me. Why can you not just directly go to the White House and talk to Trump and have the DOJ just pull this case? Why would Trump and the Trump administration allow the DOJ to pursue the case?
Well, I think for a couple reasons. One, in Trump 1, they did pull back the EPA's what was then a preliminary decision on a veto, and it got overturned in court. So I think they feel, and I'm not sure they're wrong, that being on the offensive side against or having us being on the offensive side rather than the environmentalists is a better thing. I don't know.
You've been a former Alaska Commissioner of Natural Resources. You've got 40-plus years in Alaska resource policy on every level. We're talking about Alaska, what has something like 57 billion pounds of copper in that state. Why is the copper going to be so vital to us? And I would say open it up for you, but how will it play in making America stronger?
Well, everything we do is basically connected to electricity. And if you're going to have electricity, you're going to have copper. One national study that was done recently said that by 2030, worldwide will be 10 million tons short of copper because of things like AI, electric vehicles, green energy, and defense, which, you build a big aircraft carrier, nuclear submarine, any of those things, they all take copper.
I don't want to get you outside your area of expertise, but I understand the same thing exists we have lithium in the Dakotas and around that region that we could certainly start mining and getting out as opposed to relying on China for any lithium and other minerals, and yet we're not doing it.
Well, let me tell you what happens with China. So they right now control, I think, most of the lithium production in the world and a bunch of the rare earths. So because they control the whole supply chain, from getting the concentrate to making metals to putting metals into computers, cars, refrigerators, they can afford to lose money sometimes. So in the past, particularly with rare earths and now somewhat with lithium, when the U.S. goes to produce, then China drops the price. So it's not economic for us.
Well, we already know how they cheat on emissions and so forth, clean air, and want everybody to sign on, as we were forced to do with the Biden-Obama era. We had all these EPA regs controlling that, and China and India and others were some of the worst polluters in the world, and that didn't make any difference what we would do to stop emissions entirely in our nation. It would not change the world picture.
Right. They actually have put, by volume, more green power on than any other nation in the world. However, we've put more green power on it as a percentage basis of what we produce. And, China has been putting new coal plants on, and they just do it. We try to do something, whether it's put a data center in, put a copper mine in, any of those things. We have a huge process that takes, for copper, for instance, average of 29 years from the time you find the copper to you find to produce it. In China, they just do it.
Yeah. And again, it's government regs that are in the way, the red tape. Is that correct?
Regs in the process, the fact that everything gets litigated, there's no cost for the environmentalists to litigate things and slow things down. All the costs fall on industry, and it's a problem. I mean, we haven't built a new copper processing plant in this country in probably 60 years. So that's why China now processes over 50% of the copper that's processed in the world.
Again, John Shively is CEO of Pebble Mining Company. He had been a former Alaska Commissioner of Natural Resources. You want to protect Alaska and its beauty, but the view of many is you just want to strip mine everything and destroy Alaska.
Well, that's just wrong. I mean, first of all, back in 1980, Alaska gave the biggest move for conservation in the history of the nation, when over 100 million acres of land was protected in parks and wildlife refuges and wilderness in the Carter administration. So, we have to have some areas that can be developed if we're going to have an economy. And we're a natural resource state. We're not a manufacturing state. We're a natural resource state. So that's how we're going to survive.
Well, the oil and gas obviously are critical, but then I had an expert on recently talking about the other, and you were talking copper refining and facilities. We don't have enough oil and gas refineries, haven't had any of those built in decades because of the constant push for Save the earth. Don't build any more. Don't drill any more. Don't do anything else. Just sit there and let yourself slowly dissolve.
And watch the lights get turned down.
Yeah, that's right. Do you think you're going to have a chance in this suit to get the DOJ off your back or not?
I think so. I mean, I'm pretty confident that we win because it was, and we have the state of Alaska suing on our side. And I think if we win, then we can go back to the Trump administration and say, look, you made your best shot, and they filed a very aggressive brief. You did your best shot, you lost. Now let's get back to trying to get this mine going.
Well, give me one more understanding. You specifically mentioned Trump, the Trump administration, and yes, the DOJ is under him. Why are they continuing to push it?
As I said, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, we're a very controversial project. I don't think it's so true now, but in Trump 1, Don Jr. was opposed to us. We have some Republicans opposed to us.
On what
just
grounds?
Because of misinformation. I mean,
on what
people
grounds?
have said we're going to destroy the fishery. We have environmental impact statements that says we're not going to destroy the fishery. But you know how politics works.
Oh yeah, I do know that, but I think it's going to distress a lot of people to hear that the Trump DOJ is still moving forward on this when all it would take is for Trump to talk to the Attorney General and say, "What the hell are we doing here?"
Yeah, well, maybe someday.
Now, we have an oral arguments in front of a federal court coming up this next month. Now, that could lift the veto, or you think it could also let Washington go forward to killing any major project going forward?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
There is, in June, you have a federal court hearing oral arguments that would lift the veto right now, the Obama-Biden EPA, and get you back in operation, or it could go the other way and let Washington have a kill switch to block any project anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And if we lose, now there is legislation that was particularly pushed by Representative Stauber of Minnesota that would help fix the veto. Right now, the way the law is written, it says whenever the EPA feels like it, they can veto. So for us, they tried to veto before we got permitted. There was a mine in West Virginia in the Obama administration where they vetoed it 5 years after the permit was issued. So there are some things that can be done outside of just the Trump administration.
All right, we'll be watching to see what happens. John Shively, CEO of Pebble Mining Company in Alaska, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Larry. It's great to be on.
You bet. I appreciate it. I do not understand what's happening with the DOJ when all it would take is say, just drop the case, walk away from it. Coming up, this is a Muslim high holiday, but you've got members still talking about being an illegal is not that bad in our country. Go ahead.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We start with your very own words, that you would like to abolish ICE. Now, what I would like to ask you is, ICE is simply the enforcement mechanism for democratically elected laws of the people. Now, for a party who has talked about the threat to democracy, is it your position that you do not want to see the will of the people, the democratically elected laws, enforced?
First of all, Will, you and I both know that immigration law is not criminal law. Immigration law is civil law. It's like getting a parking ticket.
No, it's
the
not.
idea that we should have a paramilitary force that is weaponized on our streets to enforce civil law seems to me to be a bit over the top, particularly considering the fact that the current president is weaponizing ICE against the idea of the rule of law itself.
That is Will Cain asking a Minnesota Democrat, Abdul Al-Sayed, about abolishing ICE, because he's comparing illegally entering our nation to nothing more than getting a parking ticket. That is stupid on face value. And certainly, I don't know of a parking ticket that has led to the murder or death of anyone. May have actually saved some lives, who knows. But they're so bought into this idea that illegals are perfectly good in this country for the Democrats. And again, as we pointed out earlier, over the Memorial Day weekend, they're outside a detention center shouting to free everyone inside, and they want to abolish ICE. They don't want to have a border. We have so many people wanting to come to this country. And when the Biden border was open, they came as often as many as they could. We still have a lottery system that we accept about 1 million plus immigrants every year. We allow them to come in. But you have to have the border. And as I pointed out repeatedly, if you watch what happens in Europe, you get a prediction of what will happen here if we are overrun by illegals who have no regard for our laws, not just violating the border, but then creating mayhem, chaos, and death. Now, I'm not going to tell you, and I don't believe that every illegal immigrant in this nation is a threat to anyone. They're here trying to make the best of what they can for themselves and their family. And they may want to actually assimilate, but they're still hiding in the shadows because they came across the border illegally. Even Obama and even Clinton, Bill Clinton had said, we are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. You know, the Obama-Clinton, I'm not sure how they would stand up in today's truly progressive party. Clinton is just off who knows where, and I could care less. And Obama, when he's not on his estate in Maryland, I should say Martha's Vineyard, he shows up occasionally, probably collects some big speaking fee or whatever, and acts like he's still got weight to throw around, which he does not. The one who is carrying some weight and throwing it around is President Trump, especially when it comes to politics. Every candidate he has endorsed has won in their primary election. And the question is, will it end up being the same when it comes to the general election for each of those candidates? Keep in mind, every member of the House is up for re-election, and a third of the Senate. And, of course, over the weekend, we had Texas Republicans choose Attorney General Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General Paxton, over the incumbent, Senator John Cornyn. 63% of the vote. Even at that point, the AP called it a decisive victory for Paxton. He will now face the Democrat state representative, James Tallarico, in November, the very one we were talking about earlier, that everyone says is just another Jasmine Crockett, different gender, different color, but has the same progressive attitudes, maybe even more so. I'm looking at a piece written in the USA Today, an opinion piece. So again, this is an opinion piece, not any kind of news, just someone's writing their thoughts on it. And I lost the author's name, but it's appearing in USA Today. And it says, folks outside Texas might view Paxton as a mini Trump because they are so politically aligned. But compared with Trump, Paxton comes across less like a movement leader and more like a politician addicted to grievance and controversy. Pointing out that Paxton was indicted and impeached by the Texas House, though later acquitted by the Texas Senate. He has admitted cheating on his wife in the past. And they're saying that it's difficult to imagine Paxton heading to Washington to focus on what is in the best interest of Texans. And he does point out in his opinion piece, these are two candidates, Paxton and Tallarico, representing different strains of modern American politics. Pointing out, as we stated earlier, Tallarico is a progressive wrapped in moderate language, a seminarian turned politician, supposedly appealing to religious Texans, but also including comments like God is non-binary. The opinion writer says, I don't know yet about Tallarico's character, but his politics reflect a familiar Democrat pattern. Progressive ideas packaged as moderation, like former President Barack Obama, who did show up to campaign for Tallarico recently. So you're going to have a show-off between an Obama-endorsed candidate against a Trump-endorsed candidate. In the meantime, the nonpartisan election handicapper group, Cook Politico, shifted its rating of the Texas Senate race toward Republicans just yesterday, from likely Republican to leaning Republican, after Paxton defeated Cornyn. The editor for the Cook Report stated, Paxton has a litany of ethical lapses for Democrats to exploit, from allegations of bribery, misuse of his office, to marital infidelity, which led his wife to divorce him on biblical grounds. And given the national environment, this is a race that certainly may have become more competitive even if Cornyn had won. But Paxton's flaws warrant an immediate move to the lean column. The Cook political editor also noted that Texas State Representative Tallarico holds a fundraising edge over Paxton that Republicans are going to need to overcome. And adding that the 2020 margin may be a better indicator given Trump's sinking approval ratings, particularly with Latino voters who swung hard for Trump in 2024. But many undecided voters, even if they dislike Paxton, may feel uncomfortable about handing over the keys to the Senate to Democrats, who have not won a Senate seat in the Lone Star State since 1988. Is Paxton flawed? Yes. Was Cornyn a hindrance to things that we need to have done? Yes. I'll take Paxton over Cornyn for what Cornyn has failed to do. And he, again, I'll remind you, he is one of those voting to impeach Trump over the false, may I state that again? Are you listening? The false allegations that Trump was involved with Russia in colluding to win the election? All of that's been debunked. You're not going to hear that on the legacy media. What we do have is controversy starting up again over the Justice Department's anti-weaponization fund. $1.7 billion fund established in May as part of a settlement to resolve President Donald Trump's $10 billion civil lawsuit against the IRS over leaking his tax returns. This anti-weaponization fund is designed to compensate anyone who claims they suffered lawfare and government overreach during the Biden administration. If you think you were targeted by the Biden administration, the Biden IRS, the Biden DOJ, because you happen to be a MAGA supporter or even an independent that did not stand firmly with the far left loonies, this is money to help you fight that battle. Of course, you have critics and watchdog groups labeling the fund as simply a political slush fund, noting that unspent money can be arbitrarily transferred by the president at the end of his term. But Alabama Senator Tuberville says, I still have my people in my state saying, we need help. Why can we not have help to get our own tax money to work for us?
Each case would be handled individually. Again, people are not going to be just handed money out. It's going to be done the right way. You got to remember, and I've had people in my office that have absolutely gone bankrupt. They've lost their businesses. Some lost their families. Some absolutely have gone off the deep end. They need to be helped. And if we can't help the American people with their own tax money, what kind of country are we? It makes no sense whatsoever that we do not stand up for the American people when we have the opportunity to do that. And that's what we're up there for. You know, we fund Ukraine, we fund Europe, we fund NATO, we do all this stuff. But when it comes to American people, not one time in 6 years, other than the big beautiful bill, have we done one damn thing to help the American people. President Trump is exactly right. Let's help these people. Let's get them back on their feet and tell the Democrats to shut the hell up, because they almost run this country in the ground by spending $7 trillion that we should have never even touched. And, you know, it's just a sad day that we have to go through something like this.
And we're not even talking about the fraud created by the Democrats. The fund works in this way. Eligible individuals who the DOJ determines were unfairly targeted can receive formal apologies and financial compensation. This operates only for a limited time. They will stop processing claims December 1, 2028. Any unused money would be transferred to other government accounts before January 1, 2029. Now, while the fund was created, as many say, it's got Trump allies in mind, the official DOJ summary states there are no partisan restrictions. If you're a Democrat and you think you've been a victim of warfare, lawfare by the Biden government, Obama government, you can file and get some help. You lose your business because of COVID-era shutdowns, I'd say step up to the plate, file your claim. You want to fight? You want a real fight? How about a UFC fight planned for the White House? Here's an update.
I'm a fan of the intensity of the celebration.
Locals and visitors getting a first physical look ahead of UFC Freedom 250 after renderings were released this weekend showing plans for a temporary arena on the South Lawn. Crews now assembling major steel structures to surround the fighters. No football, no baseball, no soccer. Apparently just guys fighting each other.
Yeah, same as the politics right now.
Flag Day, June 14th, is the target date for the event, which also happens to be President Trump's 80th birthday. National Park Service records show event setup and tear down stretches from May 20th through late June, underscoring the size of the transformation. The Washington Post reports roughly 4,000 spectators are expected near the secured South Lawn viewing area. More people expected to gather in separate viewing areas.
I think it's pretty cool, though. The public loves that.
I think it's pretty cool. They're going to have a UFC fight, a cage match, on the South Lawn of the White House. And yeah, it coincides with Trump's birthday, and so that's why the Democrats and others are crying, something's wrong here, something's wrong here. And they keep talking about his ballroom. His ballroom. It's not going to be his ballroom. Of course, the intent is to have it completed before he does leave office, but it will be there for all future presidents, regardless of party. And it'll provide a secure facility to host major events as opposed to going to Washington area hotels and having to supplement security. This would be for all presidents. But you don't hear the left admitting that. No, this is Trump's ballroom. It's all for him and his glory. Some people you just can't teach, can you? They're never going to get it in their head. And their philosophy is, as I've often referred to it, as the blinker switch philosophy. Your turn blinker is on, it's off, it's on, it's off. And that's the way they are in their beliefs and attitudes. And whoever speaks to them last has a good chance of winning them over. That's why we are here for you. Join us again tomorrow, will you? And remember our pledge, one nation under